Hello, it's me, Daryl, Florida Catholic guy. I wanted to do a video talking about uh, Francis's latest apostolic letter, Motu Proprio, uh, Traditionis Custodes, which translated means guardian of tradition, which is quite hilarious since this is the destruction of tradition. I'll just give a brief overview because I'm sure a lot of people have seen it by now. It's been covered by a lot of the major news outlets. Basically, what it does is it seriously restricts the traditional Latin Mass. Uh, he claims it's in order to promote the concord and unity of the Church with paternal solicitude towards those who in any region adhere to the liturgical forms antecedent to the reform willed by the Second Vatican Council in 1970, I guess he says. Basically saying that the Novus Ordo Mass is the unique expression of the lex orandi of the Roman Rite. Yeah, okay, whatever. It's the bishops of the diocese that regulate the liturgical celebrations of his diocese, and it's his exclusive competence to authorize the use of the 1962 Roman Missal, which is what we call the traditional Latin Mass. The bishop of the diocese. All right, this is the most problematic article. This is the worst article out of all of them, and all of them are pretty bad. The bishop of the diocese in which until now there exist one or more groups that celebrate according to the missal antecedent to the reform of 1970, meaning the traditional Latin Mass, is to determine that these groups do not deny the validity and the legitimacy of the liturgical reform dictated by Vatican Council II and the magisterium of the Supreme Pontiffs. So I guess basically what the bishop has to do is he has to get us all to, oh, that's my left hand, but raise our right hand and swear that, how does he put it, that that we swear that we do not deny the validity and the legitimacy of the liturgical reforms, also known as Novus Ordo. So we have to swear that we believe the Novus Ordo is valid and legitimate. Article 2 says, or not Article 2, bullet point 2 or section 2, I guess, is to designate one or more locations where the faithful adherents of these groups may gather for the Eucharistic celebration. Well, that sounds good. It sounds like he's given us permission to have our Latin Mass, but He then instructs, not, however, in the parochial churches and without the erection of new personal parishes. So that means basically any church that's not in a religious order or something like that is a parochial parish church. And so that means, and the church that I go to is, well, it's a parish church, but it's operated as a personal parish because it is where the Latin Mass is held for everybody within the area. I mean, we have people that 2 hours away, if not more, that come to our church. So, but, it's going to depend on bishops, especially our bishop, whether our church would be considered a parochial church or whether he would consider it an existing personal parish, which you can't have new personal parishes, but I guess you can maybe, if the bishop allows it, I guess we can have existing personal parishes. To establish, bullet point 3 is to establish at the designated locations the days on which Eucharistic celebrations are permitted, using the Roman Missal promulgated by St. John the 23rd in 1962. In these celebrations, the readings are proclaimed in the vernacular language, using translations of the sacred scripture approved for liturgical use by the respective episcopal conferences. Well, that means, as our priest was telling us in his sermon today, our bishop can say, you can only have your Latin Mass maybe at the hospital chapel, which holds about 10 people, when we got about 1,000 that go every weekend to our Mass. Or you can hold your Mass at the chapel of the funeral home up the street, which holds about 5 people. Or you can, maybe Farmer Bob has, who goes to our church, I'm just using that obviously as an example, maybe he's got a barn in Ocala somewhere, and we can have our Mass inside his barn, but we can only have it Tuesdays at 2:33 in the afternoon, or whatever. That's, this is what he can do if he decides to go this route. I don't think he will, but who knows? The thing is, right now our bishop is on vacation until the end of the month. So for now, the bishop called our priest by phone and gave him permission to continue as normal until the end of the month when he comes back, and then he'll talk to him then. So, and the other point about stupid flies, about proclaiming the readings in the vernacular, which means for us would be English. That's the language of the area that you're in, and not in Latin. This is no big deal. A lot of churches already did before the priest gives his sermon, he reads the epistle and the gospel in English. Our priest here never did it. They started today. So, and he said the thing about being translations of the sacred scripture approved for liturgical use by the respective episcopal conferences, we don't have that, because in the Latin Mass there is no rubrics, or there is no, I can't think of the word I'm saying, but there is no instructions on saying the readings in English. Like I said, he's just doing what the rest of us do and use the missals that we have and reads it off there. I mean, that's about all he can do. Okay, bullet point 4 is to appoint a priest who, as delegate of the bishop, is entrusted with these celebrations and with the pastoral care of these groups of the faithful. The priest should be suited for this responsibility, skilled in the use of the Missal Romanum, antecedent to the Reform of 1970, possess a knowledge of the Latin language sufficient for a thorough comprehension of the rubrics and liturgical texts, and to be animated by a lively pastoral charity and by a sense of ecclesial communion. This priest should have at heart not only the correct celebration of the liturgy, but also the pastoral and spiritual care of the faithful. Well, it's like the priest said, that should be every priest in the world. I mean, every priest in the world should, know how to say the Mass. Actually should know ever since Pope Benedict's Motu Proprio Summorum Pontificum in 2007. All priests should have been learning the Latin Mass if they didn't already know it. But of course we know many of them didn't, which is another problem. But every priest should possess the knowledge of the Latin language. They still, when men go to seminaries to become priests, they're still required to learn Latin, so they should know enough to say the Mass. And they should have pastoral charity and should have pastoral and spiritual care of the faithful. That's the first thing any priest is responsible for. So, but this means basically the bishop can choose, if he decides to have the Latin Mass, he can decide which priest he wants to have it, and whatever. And bulletproof 5 is to proceed suitably to verify that the parishes canonically erected for the benefit of these faithful are effected for their spiritual growth, and to determine whether or not to retain them. So, as our priest was saying today in his sermon, he says, I guess that means the bishop is going to be coming to our parish, and I guess, I don't know, at Mass or sometime he's going to test us to see if the faithful have had effectual spiritual growth from our parish. Our priest said he doesn't know if he's going to talk to us or give us a multiple choice test or what he's going to do on that. But the problem is and to determine whether or not to retain them. That means the bishop, even if we have spiritual growth from our parish, he can still choose to get rid of us. And to take care not to authorize the establishment of new groups. Well, that's another problem. Our Mass, as has been, I believe I've mentioned this here on my videos, is the only one in the last year and a half when we've had COVID that's actually grown. And we've grown by a lot. And it's got to the point where I think I mentioned we need a new church to hold the people that we have. So what happens if we keep growing and we decide we need a new church somewhere or another church to offer the Mass? Right now, in our diocese, I guess we have 3 churches that currently offer the Latin Mass. So you can't establish new groups. So that's kind of a problem. Let's see. Okay, now we go to Article 4. Let's see if this is anything that... Oh yes, Article 4. Priests ordained after the publication of the present Motu Proprio, who wish to celebrate using the Missal Romanium of 1962, should submit a formal request to the diocesan bishop, who shall consult the Apostolic See before granting this authorization. So basically, in order for new priests All right, I'll read Article 5 because it goes along with Article 4. Priests who already celebrate according to the Missal Romanum of 1962 should request from the diocesan bishop the authorization to continue to enjoy this faculty. So basically, new priests that get ordained have to ask the bishop if they can say the traditional Mass, and the bishop then has to ask Rome if they could say the traditional Mass. And, you know, Rome might not write back, or they might say no, or I don't know, maybe they'll say yes, but, you know, who knows. But meanwhile, you know, we got the priestly fraternities like the FSSP, which is the Fraternal Society of St. Peter. They're a Latin Mass only society that has parishes all over, and they only say the Latin Mass. And so they have their own seminaries where they teach them the Latin Mass and, you know, do the normal instructions that you get when you go to seminary. And so now these new priests who have, you know, became priests to serve the fraternity, and there's other, not just the FSSP, but there's other smaller fraternities that do the Latin Mass only, that have their own seminaries. And so this means when they get ordained, they can't say the Latin Mass until they get permission from Rome, which means if they don't get permission and we don't get new priests that can say the Latin Mass, eventually the fraternities are going to die, which is what we believe the Pope wants, is the complete abolishment of the Latin Mass, because, well, the last 2,000 years of sacred tradition has been wrong, and the only thing that's been right is since 1970 onward, and that's the only the Novus Ordo is the only thing that's been good for the church, and we can tell that because the Novus Ordo parishes, 50% don't even believe in the real presence of our Lord in the Eucharist. 80% don't even go to Mass. 50 to 60% or more believe abortion is okay, believe that supporting the alphabet people is okay. So that's that's what the faithful need, since then. The rest of, all that rigid stuff from before 1969, 70, whatever, that was all before, and that was all bad. Too many saints were made from the old rite, and so, we gotta, fix things, which they did. And of course, if priests that are already priests want to say the Latin Mass, they have to ask the bishop, which before they never had to do. Article number 6, Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life, erected by the Pontifical Commission Ecclesia Dei, fall under the competence of the Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies for Apostolic Life. So, those are the Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies for Apostolic Life are run by, I hate to use liberal and left wing because that makes it sound too American political, and I guess the better word to use is modernist, which modernism is one of the biggest heresies of our day. And I can get into what modernism is and how it's ruined the church as well as society as a whole in another video. But, they're not going to be friendly to the Latin Mass. The Congregation for Divine Worship, this is Article 7, the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments, and the Congregation for Institutes of Consecrated Life and Societies of Apostolic Life, for matters of their particular competence, exercise authority of the Holy See with respect to observance of these provisions. So, basically those congregations which I mentioned are blatant modernists and not at all friendly to the traditional Mass, is going to have authority over all the institutes, like the FSSP, and there's another one that I can't think of right now. I don't remember what it was, what it is. Let's see if I can. the Institute of Christ the King is the other one that I was trying to think of. So, and that's basically it. So that's basically it for that. Um, there was another letter that the Pope issued with this. And Francis claims that this is for unity or something. Now this article I got, it has supposedly has the letter, but this site that I got the letter from is a anti-Latin Mass site. So the letter goes, most people understand the motives that prompted St. John Paul II and Benedict XVI to allow the use of the Roman Missal promulgated by St. Pius V and edited by John XXIII in 1962 for the Eucharistic sacrifice. The faculty granted by the indult of the Congregation for Divine Worship in 1984 and confirmed by St. John Paul II in the Motu Proprio Ecclesia Dei in 1988 was above all motivated by the desire to foster the healing of the schism with the movement of Monsignor Lefebvre, with the ecclesial intention of restoring the unity of the Church. The bishops were thus asked to accept with generosity the just aspirations of the faithful who requested the use of that missal. It comforted Benedict XVI in his discernment that many desired to find a form of the sacred liturgy dear to them, clearly accepted the binding charter of Vatican Council II, and were faithful to the Pope and to the bishops. What is more, he declared to be unfounded the fear of division in parish communities, because the two forms of the use of the Roman Rite would enrich one another. Thus he invited the bishops to set aside their doubts and fears, and to welcome the norms, attentive that everything would proceed in peace and serenity, with the promise that it would be possible to find resolutions in the event that serious difficulties came to light, and the implementation of the norms once the Motu Proprio came into effect. Pope Benedict XVI didn't think there would be problems of implementation or divisions fostered. He thought the opposite. So did I and many others who preferred traditional liturgy. Well, that's not the part of the letter. That's the article's. All right, here's the letter again. With the passage of 13 years, I instructed the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith to circulate a questionnaire to the bishops regarding the implementation of a Motu Proprio Summorum Pontificum. The responses revealed a situation that preoccupies and saddens me, and persuades me of the need to intervene. Regrettably, the pastoral objection of my predecessors who had intended to do everything possible to ensure that all those who truly possess the desire for unity would find it possible to remain in this unity or to rediscover it anew, has often been seriously disregarded, an opportunity offered by St. John Paul II, and with even greater magnanimity by Benedict XVI, intended to recover the unity of an ecclesial body with diverse liturgical sensibilities, was exploited to widen the gaps, reinforce the divergences, and encourage disagreements that injure the church, block her path, and expose her to the peril of division. At the same time, I am saddened by abuses in the celebration of the liturgy on all sides. In common with Benedict XVI, I deplore the fact that in many places the prescriptions of the new missal are not observed in celebration, but indeed come to be interpreted as an authorization for, or even a requirement of creativity, which leads to almost unbearable distortions. But I am nonetheless saddened that the instrumental use of the Missal Romanium of 1962 is often characterized by a rejection not only of the liturgical reform, but of the Vatican Council II itself, claiming with unfounded and unsustainable assertions that it betrayed the tradition and the true church. I ask you to be vigilant in ensuring that every liturgy be celebrated with decorum and fidelity to the liturgical books promulgated after Vatican Council II, without the eccentricities that can easily degenerate into abuses. Seminarians and new priests should be formed in the faithful observance of the prescriptions of the Missal and liturgical books, in which is reflected the liturgical reform will by the Second Vatican Council. To doubt the Council is to doubt the intentions of those very fathers who exercise their collegial power in a solemn manner, cum patro et sub patro, in an ecumenical council, and in final analysis to doubt the Holy Spirit himself, who guides the Church. A final reason for my decision is this. Even more plain in the words and attitudes of many is the close connection between the choice of celebrations according to the liturgical books prior to Vatican Council II and the rejection of the Church and her institutions in the name of what is called true church. One is dealing here with comportment that contradicts communion and nurtures the divisive tendency. I belong to Paul. I belong instead to Apollo. I belong to Cephas. I belong to Christ, against which the Apostle Paul so vigorously reacted. Responding to your request, I take the firm decision to abrogate all the norms, instructions, permissions, and customs that preceded the present Motu Proprio, and declare that the liturgical books promulgated by the saintly pontiffs Paul VI and John Paul II, in conformity with the decrees of Vatican Council II, constitute the unique expression of the lex orandi of the Roman Rite. So, there you have it. There's another papal bull that I want to read. It's a little bit long, and I know this is going long, but bear with me. It's called Quo Primum, Promulgating the Tridentine Liturgy by Pope Pius V in the year 1570. And this document, this Quo Primum, issued by the Pope, is no doubt an infallible document, which means no pope or bishop or anyone can change this. So let me go on. From the very first, upon our elevation to the chief apostleship, we gladly turned our mind and energies and directed all our thoughts to those matters which concern the preservation of a pure liturgy. And we strove with God's help by every means in our power to accomplish this purpose. For besides other decrees of the Sacred Council of Trent, there were stipulations for us to revise and re-edit the sacred books, the Catechism, the Missal, and the Breviary. With the Catechism published for the instruction of the faithful by God's help, and the Breviary thoroughly revised for the worthy praise of God, in order that the Missal and Breviary may be in perfect harmony as fitting and proper. For it's most becoming that there be in the church only one appropriate manner of reciting the Psalms, and only one rite for the celebration of Mass. We deemed it necessary to give our immediate attention to what still remained to be done, viz. The re-editing of the Missal as soon as possible. Hence, we decided to entrust this work to learned men of our selection. They very carefully collated all their work, which with the ancient codices in our Vatican library, and with reliable, preserved, or amended codices from elsewhere. Besides this, these men consulted the works of the ancient and approved authors concerning the same sacred rites, and thus they have restored the Missal itself to the original form and rite of the Holy Fathers. When this work has been gone over numerous times and further amended after serious study and reflection, we command that the finished product be printed and published as soon as possible, so that all might enjoy the fruits of this labor, and thus priests would know which prayers to use and which rites and ceremonies they are required to observe from now on in the celebration of Masses. And before I go on, I need to check the radar because I just saw a flash of lightning, so I might have to end this. I'm gonna try it. Let all everywhere adopt and observe what has been handed down by the Holy Roman Church, the mother and teacher of the other churches, and let Masses not be sung or read according to any other formula than that of this Missal published by us. The ordinance applies henceforth, now and forever, throughout all the provinces of the Christian world, to all patriarchs, cathedral churches, collegiate and parish churches, be they secular or religious, both of men and of women, even of military orders, and of churches or chapels without a specific congregation, in which conventual masses are sung aloud in choir or read privately in accord with the rites and customs of the Roman Church. This Missal is to be used by all churches, even by those which in their authorization are made exempt, whether by apostolic indult, custom, or privilege, or even if by oath or official confirmation of the Holy See, or have their rights and faculties guaranteed to them by any other manner whatsoever. This new rite alone, and again, this new rite, they're talking about the traditional Latin Mass that we know now. This new rite alone is to be used unless approval of the practice of saying Mass differently was given at the very time of the institution and confirmation of the Church by Apostolic See at least 200 years ago, or unless there has been prevailed a custom of a similar kind which has been continually followed for a period of not less than 200 years, in which most cases we in no wise rescind the above mentioned prerogative or customs. However, if this missal which we have seen fit to publish be more agreeable to these latter, we grant them permission to celebrate Mass according to its rite, provided they have the consent of their bishop or prelate, or in their whole chapter, everything else to the contrary notwithstanding. All of the churches referred to above, however, are hereby denied the use of other missals, which are to be discontinued entirely and absolutely, whereas by this present Constitution, which will be valid henceforth now and forever, we order and enjoin that nothing must be added to our recently published missal, nothing omitted from it, nor anything whatsoever be changed within it under the penalty of our displeasure. We specifically command each and every patriarch, administrator, and other persons or whatever ecclesiastical dignity they may be they even cardinals or the Holy Roman Church of the Holy Roman Church, or possessed of any other rank or preeminence, and we order them in virtue of holy obedience to chant or to read the Mass according to the rite and manner and norm herewith laid down by us, and hereafter to discontinue and completely discard all other rubrics and rites of other missals, however ancient, which they have customarily followed. And they must not, in celebrating Mass, presume to introduce any ceremonies or recite any prayers other than those contained in this missal. Furthermore, by these presents, this law, in virtue of our apostolic authority, we grant and concede in perpetuity that for the chanting or reading of the Mass in any church whatsoever, this missal is hereafter to be followed absolutely without any scruple of conscience or fear of incurring any penalty, judgment, or censure, and may freely and lawfully be used, nor are superiors, administrators, canons, chaplains, and other secular priests or religious or whatever title designated obliged to celebrate the Mass otherwise than as enjoined by us. We likewise declare and ordain that no one whosoever is forced to or coerced to alter this missal, and that this present document cannot be revoked or modified, but remain always valid and retain its full force, notwithstanding the previous constitutions and decrees of the Holy See, as well as any general or special constitutions or edicts of provincial or synodal councils, and notwithstanding the practice and custom of aforesaid churches, established by long and immemorial prescriptions, except, however, if more than 200 years standing. And that's all I'm going to give, because the storm is getting closer. And I don't want to get struck by lightning, but basically you get the gist of it is that I'm not going to say the Novus Ordo is invalid. I'm not going to go into that. But the bottom line is the traditional Latin Mass is the Mass of the Church. And as Quo Primum stated that I just read, it is in effect from 1562, I think it was, until forever. So that means no pope, no cardinal, no bishop has any authority to tell any priest that they can't offer the traditional Latin Mass. And that's not my opinion. That's in the papal bull. Can't argue with that. So I'm not going to go into whether Francis is a real pope, or is he really a pope or not? I mean, that's far above my pay grade. But it's not right what he did. But anyway, I'm going to say good night. God bless you. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.